Hello, everyone. My name is Clifton Johnson. I'm the founder of the Empower Series. Welcome. I want to welcome all of our listeners and viewers in the United States and around the world to the Empower Series YouTube Live podcast. If you want to find out more about the Empower Series, please visit our website. It's www.empowerseries.com. And I always start with gratitude. So I want to first thank you for investing your time and a portion of your life to listen to our podcast or to view it on YouTube. I want to thank our supporters, which is Comerica Bank and AE Media Group, and your generous donations. If it wasn't for your contributions, we wouldn't be able to put on our free workshops, our free lunch and learns, and these podcasts and quality programs. So thank you very much. If you go to our website, you can look at our future events by clicking on the RSVP button. You'll see that we have events on the second Saturday of every month in Houston, the third Saturday of every month in Dallas. Then we have a lunch and learn the Friday before the third Saturday in Dallas. Also, if you give us your feedback, we can make sure that we're putting out there quality programs that's going to be beneficial for you. And if you want to donate, you can always click on the donate button in the top left-hand corner, or even text donate or give to 214-225-6337. Today, our guest is going to be Carlos White. Carlos is a partner at Foss Brown Todd LLC. It is a law firm, and Carlos is actually, he says he's kind of under the radar. He wants to stay under the radar, but he's actually one of the best attorneys here in Dallas, per D Magazine. And he focuses primarily on franchises as well as corporate and commercial law. And he helps companies throughout the United States actually do a number of things, either raise capital or create systems for franchises in raising money either through private equity offering, or also restructuring companies or divestitures. And he does a much better job in explaining what he does better than I do. But what we're going to talk about today is actually from all of his experiences, what he sees as one of the main issues that is preventing the growth of businesses is really making sure that all of their business objectives are systematized and really documenting them so that the system and the business can run without them. And we're going to have a great conversation about how he feels putting that in place with any idea that you have is going to help you grow your business. So without any further ado, everybody, let me welcome Carlos White. How you doing, sir?
Good, everyone.
So we were talking earlier. Now, you graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with your law degree.
Yes.
And then you went to Southern University for your undergrad.
Yes.
But you're from where? Where are you from?
Yeah, born and raised in Shreveport, Louisiana. Well, actually, a smaller town outside of Shreveport called Blanchard, Louisiana.
Okay.
But I'm going to claim Shreveport because I think
right.
most people in Dallas would know what Shreveport. Unlike my wife, who's from Atlanta, Georgia, I-20 sister city, she's never heard of Shreveport when I met her. So I had to go about telling her the famous three people from Shreveport, which are Johnny Cochran was born and raised in Shreveport. If you're a football fan, Terry Bradshaw, former Steelers quarterback, as well as if you're a basketball fan, especially with the Celtics, Robert Parrish was born and raised in Shreveport. So.
Now, and how long have you guys been married?
We've been married 19 years. It'll be 20 years in July.
Man, congratulations
on that. Thank you so much.
Now, my aunt is actually in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I go out there quite often. I spent New Year's out there as well. And she's been married for over 60 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my uncle passed away just last year. But yeah, man, you take that 20?
Yes.
Just do that 3 times, you're good. And we go to the Final Four every year, and this year the Final Four is actually in Atlanta.
Okay.
So do you think you'll be heading out there during the Final Four at all?
Yeah, I'll be heading to Atlanta a few times this year. I have a few clients out there that just help create franchise programs, and actually one potential project I'm working on with one of your former participants with Calvin Golden. Got a couple of hip-hop celebrities that are thinking about trying to franchise a restaurant concept. So hopefully I'll be down there. Hopefully that deal comes through and we can put together the systems so that they can properly expand and grow.
So we met through Calvin as well. How long have you known Calvin?
I've known Calvin for around 5 years. I always followed his career before then, seeing that he was a very successful franchisee for Wingstop, as well as helped put together the Wingstop franchise program. So he's someone that's always been on my radar. And fortunately, I've been blessed to have the opportunity to meet with him, as well as with Mr. Hiawatha Williams and Tim Williams of Williams Chicken. They're really strong in the franchising arena, and those guys have really done a great job with respect to showing how companies can basically expand through the franchising model.
Yeah, so also in meeting with Calvin, who introduced me to Calvin was Jason Killo. And he works for the Entrepreneur Authority, which is a franchise broker.
Okay.
And one of the things that we talk about, because everybody's talking about entrepreneurship, you know, and I would say that there's nothing wrong with being an employee.
Right.
Because if you're a true entrepreneur, you need to create a system that of a business that generates income without you.
Correct.
You can't do that alone.
Correct.
So you need employees.
Absolutely.
Right. So there's really nothing wrong with being an employee, because that could be a stepping stone to you going out there and creating your business as well. Right.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. I think that's the main thing with respect to any business. We got to be in a position where all that intellectual capital is just not with the owner, right? They have to be able to share it with the employees so that they can replicate those positive attributes in order to grow the business. So.
Well, one of the challenges, though, because I find that entrepreneur, they may have a job, and what they find themselves doing is just leaving the job, which is they're working for somebody else, and then they're working truly for themselves. So they just, it's another job.
Right.
And they're holding on to either proprietary information or systems, or doing it on themselves. And like the E-Myth says, they're the technician in their business, and they're not really looking at taking a step back and working on their business. So that's what you're saying is one of the biggest hindrances that you're running into when you see people starting their business up front. They're too much in it and they're not working on it, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the, issues associated with especially working with startups and startup and entrepreneurs, in the sense of they create this concept and they wear too many hats. They it's hard for them to kind of identify people that can assist them with respect to their goals. And I think one of the things that they should start doing initially is at the business plan process, because I would imagine everyone knows about, hey, we need to develop a business plan, is to kind of identify what are those business activities that are going to be relevant with respect to your business models, and basically start systematizing by what? Basically creating tasks that wraps around each system, and making sure that the tasks can be documented, that you can train somebody on the task, and it can be refined as they move in the future.
Okay, so let's step through this, because I want to ask you, if someone has an idea, given your experience and of what you just laid out, what should someone do? And you talked about a business plan. So many people think that you can just start a business, and you hear people say you don't really need a business plan to start a business. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's I wouldn't advise on that. Of course, you always have, I would imagine you always have, exceptions to every rule, but you really need a business plan, or you might call it something else, but you need some type of framework so that you can actually go through and do the intellectual gymnastics with respect to how are you planning, what do you see the vision of your business, where do you see your customers coming from, and how do you go about taking advantage of the market? And to me, that has to be thought through and kind of documented. And from that process, you can start putting together, okay, how do I piece my team together? What type of financing that I need? But that all derives from having some type of framework, some type of documentation, so that you can help be successful in your business endeavors, because there's a lot of businesses that fail, whether they're franchise or not franchise, and it's because they don't document or systematize or think through the process properly.
Okay, so I have a cousin that's in Atlanta, and he just turned 16. So what's up, Simeon? I'm giving him a shout out. So he has a business. He has a photography business.
Yes.
And we're going to take that photography business, which might seem very simple, but the principles we're going to talk about can be applied to any idea.
Yes.
So he loves photography. And he is so excited. He was talking to me about starting a business, and I've been on him about a business plan and thinking things through, because he thinks he needs money, he needs to buy a camera, he needs a PC, he needs software, he needs to do all these different things. I said, well, slow your roll, bro. Slow your roll. Let's think this through, because even if when you ask your father for money, the fact that you've sat down and you've done some planning is going to help you more so. Now he's going to give you the money no matter what. So doing a business plan is not necessarily key to you getting money, because some people can start a business and get money, get loans, get credit without doing the plan. But the benefit of the plan. So let's talk about him.
Yes.
He wants to be a photographer. He doesn't have a team. He's going to be the one doing the work. But if you want to make sure that that he's putting some thought as to how this can be a business for him that is scalable, what would you say the first thing he should do?
I think the first thing, of course, this is my thoughts, and it's probably not par for the course, but honestly, I think there's a lot of free information out there that we don't really take advantage of. The first thing that I would do is I would have him and his parents or his father basically take a look at, are there any public companies out there in the photography business? The reason why I say that, because if there are public companies out there, then every public company has to provide what they call 10Ks and 10Qs, and that provides a lot of good industry information with respect to your business model. So you can kind of get a feel for, how they go about generating revenues, where do they see where the growth opportunities are. And it's like 200 or 300 pages, but being disciplined, and it is written in plain language, so to speak, and having that as a place where you can get information so that you can start developing your own business plans and kind of determine where the niche that you kind of want to work within that particular industry. I think that's a good start for identifying to help develop the framework for your particular business plan.
And that could be in any business, right?
Yeah, that could be any business. Yeah, just about, I mean, there are public companies in just about every industry or field. So I think that a lot of times we overlook the free information that's out there via 10Ks and 10Qs.
So that's doing your research?
Yes.
Right, doing your research and getting a good framework and really thinking who are your competitors as well, and then what's going to differentiate you and you entering the market, what's going to make you different, and why would they come to you as opposed to your other competitors out there too?
Right, and also they have what they call risk factors in there, where the company has to identify, here are the potential risks associated with my business model, right? So,
so you can just probably cut and paste, bro.
Well, you got to customize, but yeah, wink, wink, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, good point. So I really didn't tell him that.
Yeah.
So what I thought you were going to go with that too is that there's a lot of free resources out there through the Small Business Administration, their partners, where there's SCORE, the Small Business Development Center, where you can go out and actually get a copy and a format of a business plan. And it's going to help you, it's going to think through a lot of things, right?
Right, and I think that's a great point as well. It's like once you have that, the templates like that SCORE and the SBA provides, and based off your own research, whether it's SEC filings or some other financial information that you obtain, then it's basically plugging that information into your template that's customized for your particular business.
So again, I know that you deal with big business. So we were just talking about nonprofit boards that you were on, like the Economic Development Board, Dallas Economic Development Board, and the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Dallas County. But then there are a lot of smaller companies, smaller nonprofits, smaller for-profits. What would you say is the reason why most of these smaller companies don't sit back and do the adequate planning or systemizing and documenting their policies and procedures?
I think maybe it's a perception of they don't feel like they have the time to do it, right? You actually, I understand that you're wearing a lot of hats, trying to operate and do this business, but you really have to make time for developing these systems and these business plans. I think that's just a perception, as well as developing a network, identifying individuals that may be in the same industry or in complementary industries that can serve as a mentor. It could provide some insights on how that they become successful, so you can kind of glean from that. But I think it's the perception. It's like, I don't have time to sit down and do it. It's in my head, and I'll be able to do it. It's more efficient to keep it there as opposed to document it.
They say the only thing between you and your goal is your reasons or your excuse for not getting it done. And so what you find with the companies that you work for, which is across the United States, these companies you're putting together franchise deals and franchise transactions where people are actually purchasing multiple units. So they're not looking at, Calvin always says sometimes, like when he started his franchise, he was in the grease.
Right.
But when you look at someone like, is it Roland Parrish, who's here in Dallas, he has over 30 McDonald's. He's not in the grease, right? Right. But he's doing something to make sure that his system is in place.
Yes.
And people who are running his 30 McDonald's are following a consistent method of getting things done from A to Z.
Absolutely.
So that he's not really having to be in the grease.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And most of my representations come from, as opposed to representing the franchisee, is actually representing the franchisor. So that's that's the great thing, like a McDonald's, is McDonald's already has a game plan, right? So they go out and identify franchisees that can kind of execute upon the game plan. So a lot of times with the franchisees, in essence, kind of dupe over what the franchisor, they have requirements, right? The franchisor require this, so the franchisee, basically, they have to follow these standards and specifications. So it takes a lot of the individualism out of it, and more or less McDonald's has developed a system based off our years of developing hamburgers. This is the best way to operate your particular restaurant. We're not asking for you to change or customize it. We're asking for you to follow the playbook.
Yeah. So I had a young lady on our podcast. She franchised.
Right.
She became a franchisor, right, of Lifeology, which is a counseling service. So she opened up her own counseling service first, and then by her systematizing it, she realized that she had a model that would be very beneficial for other mental health practitioners to go out and open up their own practice and follow her system of getting clients and working it out to where she sold that model and her system to other franchisees who are now able to open it.
Right.
And so I bring that up because we have people who may have their own unique idea.
Right.
They don't want to fit within somebody else's model,
Right.
so that's cool. I still think, and you would agree, I hope, that as a entrepreneur or a startup company, it still behooves you to think like a franchisor.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a perfect segue. In essence, if you planning to expand, if your goal is to expand, it's basically think like a franchisor. You know, whether you want to operate company-owned stores and not franchise the concept out, or if you want to provide other people with license the opportunity to operate your model, you have to think like a franchisor. And at the end of the day, thinking like a franchisor is basically having systems for just about every business activity and financial operations that you will face in your operation, and it's documented it in a way where it's not individualized. What does that mean? You want to make sure that's plug and play. Like one person is not indispensable. Like if I lose this person, that person cannot be replaced. No, it's to make it more generic so that the system is there. You just follow the task. You train them on the task, and you just continue to refine it as needed.
So it's like you have a book, and it's like, okay, if I give you this book, if you just do A through Z, you can get it done.
Absolutely.
And so that's good. Like you said, if you want to be scalable,
right?
And let's say you have an operation in Dallas, you want to open one in California
right.
or New York, then whether you own it or whether you find somebody who's willing to invest the capital where they own it, but they just follow your procedure, you should be thinking that way no matter what business you start.
Absolutely.
And so talking about that, you said you spent some time out in Atlanta. At least I think the first time we met, you were in Atlanta with Calvin, and you were working with some other business owners out there who were looking at franchising their businesses, right?
One of the things about franchise, it's a lot of regulatory issues related to franchise. Like if you want to go out there and sell franchise, you just can't do it. You got to have a prospectus that you must provide to a franchisee, and that prospectus has to provide basically all the material information with respect to your franchise system. Right. So a person that wants to buy into it can make a rational decision whether or not they want to purchase. There's a lot of companies out there that are franchising, but are not really following the law because they don't really have the prospectus.
They shouldn't be doing that, man.
No, it's actually criminal in nature in certain states, because there's certain states that have higher franchise standards than in Texas.
So speaking about that, if someone is really looking at entering or looking into a franchise model, they don't want to create the wheel. They don't want to recreate the wheel.
Right.
In addition to working with a franchise broker, where would you say that they should look?
I think, honestly, they need to look to a franchise attorney.
Okay.
That would be if you're thinking about franchising, it should be a franchise attorney. The reason being because franchising is a legal term of art. It's what the law is statutory in nature. The law defines what a franchise. And you need to make sure that you're working with somebody that has the correct parameters to structure your franchise program so that it's legally compliant. And from working with the franchise attorney, then it's about identifying franchise consultants, depending on what industry you're in, that have experience in developing these particular concepts. Also working, if you're going to build units and outlets and things of that nature, then you need to have somebody familiar with construction, like how much it's going to cost to build out this. Design, marketing. So it takes an entire team of folks in order to really build out a solid franchise program.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So I'm thinking, if you have a concept and you want to create a franchise and be a franchisor, you definitely need to get with an attorney.
Right.
Okay, if you're a franchisee potentially and you're looking, you wouldn't say get with a franchise attorney initially, would you?
Well,
Would you go there?
no. I mean, it's a little different from the franchisee's perspective.
Right, okay.
Now, from a franchisee, you would eventually, I think you would need an attorney
At some
with
point.
respect to evaluating that prospectus that I was talking about to make sure that this is a viable franchise opportunity as compared to other similar franchises, as well as you'll need an attorney probably for lease and real estate type work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more or less, I think the first person is one of the things, the requirements under the franchise prospectus is they provide you a list of current franchisees and former franchisees. Talk to people that's actually in the grease, right? Or been outside the grease and been terminated.
Right.
So, so that you can have an accurate view, and don't let them steer you to, oh, talk to this particular person. You know, just randomly select a few of those and talk to them to get a feel for how was it to operate the business, because they know they're going to give you the pro forma. It's like, okay, this is how we have to report. This is how we go about marketing. They're going to provide you a lot of information that you wouldn't otherwise receive.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the idea of my cousin.
Right.
16, starting a business. But before I do that, I know a few people who've just jumped into buying a franchise and probably not doing the due diligence and doing the checklist first. Well, one of the gentlemen who did not really use a lot of external resources, but just used his own good sense, him and his wife, is going to be our speaker in Houston. His name is Mark Norman.
Okay.
I don't know if you know him, but he has several Baskin and Robbins units. And he bought the first one. He bought the other one. He's been very involved. He's on the steering committee board, and he just won the Developer of the Year award.
Right.
He's been doing this for I think 5 years. And he has a partnership into some Dunkin' Donuts in Boston, I believe. The point I'm making, though, is that he didn't really use the resources that were around him to advise him. Him and his wife usually, they just use their good sense. They did their own research. They did their due diligence. But nowadays, we do have resources that people can use, whether it's SCORE, Small Business Administration, et cetera. If someone is truly looking at purchasing a franchise as a franchisee, and they would go out there just doing their list, they're just doing their own research, is there a professional that you would recommend, given your experience, that they should tap into first to help guide them through the process?
I think once they receive, because if they're a franchisee, they got to receive this franchise prospectus, right? And that's going to provide like 300 or 400. Baskin Robbins is a huge franchise system, so that's going to provide a lot of information with respect to, the model, how to go about operating. I always think, not trying to, push for hiring attorneys, but I think it's important. It's like, okay, you're going to buy in a franchise. What legal entity are you going to structure it in? What's the tax implication? You need to go talk to an accountant to get a feel for, make sure that you're structuring it in the most tax efficient way, as well as how do you go about mitigating your risk? Because most franchisors, they require a personal guarantee. But some of them that's something that may be negotiable, as opposed to having an unlimited personal guarantee. They may be able to negotiate to a lot, like $25,000 or $50,000.
So you wouldn't be the kind of attorney that they would go to, because you represent franchisors. But there are attorneys out there that represent franchisees?
I represent both. Most of it is franchisors. Yeah, I represent a lot of multi-unit franchisors, and one that own 5 or 6 particular franchises. But yeah, I think an accountant is always a good starting place. A lawyer. As well as really reviewing that franchise prospectus, because there's a lot of hidden nuggets in there that will kind of identify maybe who else you may need to talk to, because the most important thing may be marketing, right? You might need to identify someone that will be able to market your particular unit within the confines of the franchise requirements. So.
Okay. All right, so going back to my cousin who's 16, photography business. So he's out there, he's looking at public companies, and he's doing his own research, looking at their public reports and their management review and narrative to make sure he's understanding the industry. What are the different things he needs to watch out for, what are his risks. And then he's also using SCORE or SBA to download the template of a business plan. And he's going through, and that business plan is also helping him think through other things too. Who's his team? Right? What's his marketing strategy? Where's his customers going to come from? his financials, how much money is he going to make,
Right.
what are his costs of the startup and things of that nature. So it's causing him to really think through certain things besides just jumping in.
Absolutely.
And if he's going to borrow some money, he has to think, okay, if I'm borrowing this money, am I going to be able to make enough money over what period of time before so I can pay back this money, right?
Absolutely.
So he's thinking through things that wasn't even on his radar.
Right.
So once you lay that out, you still have not systematized your business.
Right. Right.
So what are the next steps to get to systematizing your business? So after the business plan, you've done that. What would you say, given your experience, should be the next step for people to make sure that they're really creating a scalable concept?
Yeah, I think the next step is to form a company.
Okay.
Right? It's like form a corporation or LLC, depending on if you have any partners or any other partners. If you're a sole owner of the entity, make sure that you have your what they call corporate governance.
Based on your liability, your tax situation.
Yeah, tax situation, as well as do you have other partners.
Gotcha.
So forming that particular entity, I think, is the most important thing. Also, considering in the situation is that you're probably going to be dealing with other individuals. So I would think you need some startup documents to protect your confidential and proprietary information, right? Okay. So if you're bringing on independent contractors to help you with your concept, you need to have an NDA in place. If you're going to hire somebody, you need to make sure that there's your employment offer letter has language in there about non-competes, as well as not to solicit, not to basically utilize, take your clients, take your vendors, and basically duplicate franchise your business before you do it. So it's about protecting your confidentiality and your IP. And then it's more or less just sitting down and just thinking step by step. It's like, how do I go about selling my particular services? And how do I go about marketing? Step one, step two, step two. How do I go about developing my film? Step one, step two. Who are the vendors I need to purchase, these cameras from? Can I negotiate with them to get a lower price on equipment? Just going every conceivable business activity, just start thinking about and systematize what do I need to do in order to satisfy this particular activity.
So one of the challenges that we talked about before is like, even with my 16-year-old, when I'm talking to him about this, he's like, man, but I like taking pictures.
Right.
So in his mind, he wants to take the pictures.
Right.
And I said, so what happens on a Saturday if you've got 5 people that want you to take pictures at different events? You can't do them both. You can't put yourself in 5 places. So you got to think through what system do you need to put in place to make sure that these 5 people will get quality, memorable pictures from your company, but yet you're making money from it. So how would we do that? So we were thinking through it. Yeah. And the same thing with you. You were saying that when you look at some of the people who have businesses, they have like maybe a restaurant with a particular recipe, and they want to franchise the model. What are the things that they're holding on to that's preventing them from really being able to scale their product or become a franchisor? Yeah,
I think most of the time, especially when you're dealing with folks that have recipes, they are afraid, of sharing, these trade secrets with someone else. So that's why it's important if you're really thinking about scaling. Now, if you're not, then that's something different. But you're thinking about scaling, then really need to talk to a co-packer, someone along those lines that you can have confidentiality protections, and they're not going to basically steal your idea, so that you can feel more comfortable in documenting these policies and procedures, because you can't scale without being able to document the operations and the workflow in a manner in which someone else can pick up and replicate.
Yeah, and that's what Williams Chicken is doing, right?
Right. They've done it for 27 years. I mean, I remember when I was in, I want to say in college, I remember reading about Williams Chicken and the Black Enterprise. And the thing that I thought that was special about Williams Chicken is, I call it, they democratize franchising, because they basically provide individuals with the opportunity to be a franchise owner that might not ordinarily be deemed a franchise owner in other concepts. Like, for instance, a McDonald's or Chili's or a lot of these franchise concepts, you got to have a net worth of $1 million and $300,000 in cash. So already, that excludes what? Right. So that's why if you go ask a lot of these larger companies, what percentage of diverse franchisees you have, it's very few, right? Right. That's why most of the time you see when this diversity is more or less it's the athlete or the entertainer, right? As opposed to people, which is great, but also more opportunity needs to be made for that store manager that worked hard at Williams Chicken for 10, 15 years, know their customers by name. That person, she needs the opportunity to own her own franchise. And I think, and that's why I love Williams Chicken with respect to, they provide those type of opportunities. But I know back in the 90s, with respect to, if you want to be a business owner, then come with Williams Chicken, and then their income, I mean, because Williams Chicken do pretty well on average, and you put in the work, then you have the possibility for unlimited income. And I think that there's an opportunity for those types of concepts, you know, that provides the community with the opportunity to participate if they're willing to work hard, and further the brand of Williams Chicken. So
okay, I like that. I like that. So again, what would you, with your experience again, in addition in using our model, so you know, doing the research, doing the business plan, looking at, okay, what entities do I form, and then what are the different processes and procedures in place? What's the next steps?
I think one of the if it's real, with someone he's real serious about it. I think it's important to get a federal trademark, right? Okay. To get your trademark and your trade name, get that registered, so that when you build your marketing around that, you have that protection, right? You don't want to put so much money in a name that's just not really protected. So I think it's very important that if it's serious, because a federal trademark, I mean, typically they have do-it-yourself opportunities, but you can get with a good lawyer, you can get that for about $1,500 to $3,000.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. And you know, personally with the Empower series, we started in 2011 doing our workshops, became a nonprofit in 2015, and in just last year actually, I filed for a trademark for the Empower series. And what's interesting is that nobody's using the Empower series, but then a large insurance company has trademark Empower and a number of different things after it, and they are now opposing my use, or they want to limit my use in some way. And so we're in negotiations right now. But I think it's interesting because they're a big company. They can use a lot of money. You know, we've been using it before them. We've been using it since 2011. I think they didn't start using it until 2014 or 18. But because they've got so much money, they can try to force us to limit our use for some reason. So that makes a lot of sense. If I had started in the very beginning and just registering the name Empower series, would have nixed all of this stuff right now. So that's a good point. Very good point.
It is. You know, it's just not. It's just experience, right? That's the thing about it. It's like it's no genius. I mean, it's just like being around and seeing things. And I think that's important. Why you have, and I congratulate you and applaud for what you're doing, because you're helping reduce the information deficit, right? A lot of people may not know this, but you're putting together programs with information where people can come out there and start making them better consumers of information, so that they can position themselves better with respect to their businesses.
Dude, you hit it, man. So I didn't say this in the very beginning, but with the Empower series, there's 4 things that I'm doing with every program, including this one. Number 1 is I want to make sure that people have hope, because everything that exists was somebody's idea. And so I believe that the most valuable resource that people have right now is not the money in their pocket or the material possessions, but it's their idea. And Dennis Kimbrough says that we get around 4 or 5 ideas a year that if we were bold or daring enough to take action on could set us financially free. And the action has to be exactly what we're talking about. So you've got this idea, you've got to have hope that you believe that it can be manifested. Secondly, you've got to be courageous and inspired enough to take action on your ideas. So part of that is educating yourself, doing the research, finding what other companies are out there doing what you're doing. That's free information. It doesn't take money to get those kind of free information. You can get educated with SCORE. People didn't even know about SCORE. Right. So take action on your ideas, educate yourself, and then get connected to resources, because like you said, you need an attorney, you need an accountant, and another gentleman said that we need to have a collaboration board, which are other people that we can connect with, that we can exchange information and be on our team, and not necessarily have money to exchange right now, but we do things for each other. And so he said, if you don't have a collaboration board, you lose it. Like, who's on your team? And so, like you said, the Empower series is filling a void of the illusion of lack. lack of material possessions, lack of any lack. We're in a world of abundance, man. So
That's right.
and you're a part of that now. So what we're recording is going to be out there. People are going to listen to this and take some action and really connect with you, connect with other resources, and manifest their ideas.
That's great.
So thank you for that for your comments and for you being part of this program, being part of the Empower series, bro. So with that being said, what else would you say that people should be doing to really systematize their business objectives so that they can grow?
Yeah, I think also, I mean, with any business, they really need to have, we've kind of alluded to, it's like an operations manual, for each particular section, each particular workflow. And it has to be documented. Because one of the things that I've seen, like the potential opportunity I was talking about earlier that Calvin and I may work on, is that you had a person that operated a successful business for 30 or 40 years or so. But now they're getting sickly and they haven't really documented anything. The kids do not want to run the business. So there you have a successful business, just one generation, that's it. Unless someone comes in and systematizes it for them. Because everything is here, but it's not documented. It's like, yes, she knows how to cook it this way, but she's not really sharing that information with others on how to do it. She's in the back cooking right. As opposed to hiring somebody to cook so she can free her mind and free her resources to more strategic type growth initiatives. So
do you think that are you guys gonna be able to work with that company or to help? Because ultimately if she doesn't change, if the business owner doesn't give up their sense of control, right, it's not going to grow. Yeah,
that's right. That's the thing that we're working on, and that's the other thing. It's like we feel like unless we're 100% owner or 100% in control, that we're losing out on something. It's like I would prefer to be 10% of a lot than 100%
of very little
of 100%. And there's ways that with respect to the company, it's like structuring your company so you can have outside investors in order, because you need capital to grow. You need capital to grow, to structure your business so that you can get the requisite capital and you still are in control. I mean, Bill Gates probably owns 4 or 5% of Microsoft. But he still, was in control when he was operating as CEO because he had the right class of shares. It's like, look, let's structure your business so that you're in control, but yet still gives you the flexibility
to raise unlimited funds of
because
capital.
even with your photography business, it's going to be capital expenditures. It's like I can go to a bank, which banks are great, but banks require personal guarantees, right? You might not have, or the credit score, or the underwriting difficulties associated with that. So the banks might not be the avenue. So how do I systematize or think through? It's like, okay, if I can't get bank financing, then what are my other options?
Right. And the other options is private capital.
Private capital through private offerings. There are some regulatory issues associated how you can go any time you offer and sell equity. But private offering to basically try to find investors to invest in the concept and give them some type of economic incentive for investing in you.
Okay, so with your law firm, you have well-established companies coming to you. Even startup companies may be coming to you with a certain amount of capital to hire you. Right. So you also mentor.
Yes.
You give back. You also volunteer on smaller nonprofit organizations.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about what you do in that regard and giving back to the community.
Yeah, one of my greatest joys recently was I was actually with Invest Atlanta. I'm always in Atlanta. I have a lot of clients in Atlanta. My wife's from Atlanta. Love the city, love Dallas and Atlanta. A lot of similarities. Is that I actually provided 2 courses on how to franchise your business pro bono. It's about 6 hours worth of services with respect to how companies can basically franchise their business in a legally compliant manner. Okay. And it's just to see in their eyes, like, oh my God, I never heard it. I heard of franchise, I didn't know what it means, Oh, that I can do this, I can structure my business to franchise. And it's, giving back in that aspect, or, even when they call on me, I don't, charge, all the time, if they're 30 minutes or so.
What was the name of the company?
It was the name of the program was Invest Atlanta.
Okay.
Invest Atlanta. They have various programs in Atlanta because there's a real push in Atlanta to develop small minority-owned businesses. And as part of that, they have this program called Invest Atlanta where they throw various accelerator programs to help local businesses grow and expand.
So, are you familiar with this annual event called Black Excellence? It's coming up in March. It's the third annual one. I think Roland Parrish is going to be the keynote speaker, but then the new CEO of the Mavs, Cynthia.
Yeah, I've seen some commercials.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really interesting because there's a number of events that are going to be happening. I believe it's at the American Airlines Center as well. So we'll get some more information out there for everybody so that they're aware of it. But there's going to be a lot of vendors, a lot of knowledge given to really help people at different phases of their business or even looking for a job, whatever, take that next step.
Right.
The fact that you talked about you provided that pro bono course in Atlanta, I'm thinking, what can we do here in Dallas? So I'm planting the seed of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel that there's a certain amount of knowledge, fundamental knowledge that needs to be given to our community, I want to think about a way for us to, have you provide the content for that on a pro bono basis, right? Not a lot of time, but then be able to have that available for people that does not take your time.
Right. Yeah.
Because you did that in Atlanta twice, you said?
Yeah, done it twice.
And then were the only people who benefited from that were the people who were there?
Yes.
So you see what I'm saying? It's like, so now that's great, but what about the people who weren't there?
Right.
I'm thinking, how can you volunteer or create some kind of knowledge-based information and have it be good for the people who are there, but then without it taking more of your time, because time is money, but still have that information and knowledge available for people who were not there? I want to think about a way of doing that. So.
Yeah, I would love to work with you on that because one of the things I think, these types of initiatives that you mentioned, it's like working with community colleges or working with the city's workforce program.
Yeah.
It seems like there should be some opportunities with respect to, structuring a program that can help out a lot of our small local businesses. Because when we think about franchise, we're thinking about, a lot of people think of hotels, quick service restaurant. Any concept can be franchised, like HVAC. I mean, we're in Texas.
Yeah.
One of the major,
really.
the Dwyer Group based in Waco, Texas. They do Mr. Electric, Mr. Plumber, huge company. So, for a lot of money. And we can do the same thing here. I mean, you can basically franchise any kind of date matchmaking services can be franchised. I franchised one of those in Australia. So.
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, speaking about that, I just started working with the Dallas County Community College District.
Yes.
I'm going to be an adjunct professor over at Brookhaven. And we were putting together a small business certification program.
Right.
That consists of, how do you start a business? How do you market it? Social media, QuickBooks, things of that nature. And I'm working with the assistant vice president over there to really put together a program, right? And so with that, we can bring people in like you to do a speak or to talk about certain aspects of franchising. Yeah,
absolutely. Because we got Dallas is one of the hubs for franchising, and we got a plethora of talent here. You mentioned Mr. Parrish. Also have, Calvin Golden. He speaks from the franchisee perspective. You got Williams Chicken speaks from the franchise perspective. So you can give a 360 view of franchising and within our DFW, within DFW, and then you can help out a lot of these. You might have companies that's at the state fair, right? It's like, hey, let's scale. Yeah. We might have companies that only have operations at the American Airline or the DFW, airport. It's like, look, these businesses can be scaled.
Yeah.
Let's go about scaling them, and then you can start identifying democratization, right, where the net worth requirement might not be as high. So now we can start finding entrepreneurs that might want to buy into that concept to help build that wealth.
Exactly.
In a particular area.
I like that. Yeah. So we're going to continue to work together, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Put you out there on blast. So how do people get in touch with you? So if people really want to work with you and they're qualified to work with you, how do you normally get clients? Is it word of mouth, or how do you market yourself through your law firm right now?
Yeah, a lot of it is word of mouth, but I'm always hitting the streets because my passion really is now I've represented a lot of mid-market companies, a lot of large companies. I worked at the largest law firm in the world a couple of years ago. I've done a lot of international and domestic franchising work. I really think that now is the opportunity is how can I identify more businesses in our community that we can scale. So that's one of the things that why I do a lot of the education with respect to, okay, here's an opportunity. And then hopefully, once they reach their stage, that I can assist them with moving forward. So it's a lot of referrals, a lot of beating the streets, and, from that aspect. So.
Okay, and you're on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, but I really haven't.
That much?
I really don't use it that much. I'm my cell. I can give my cell number.
You want to do that?
Yeah,
okay,
always. My business cell is I work at Frost Brown Tide. So if you go Google Carlos White, Frost Brown Tide, my bio will pick up, and they give you my telephone information at the office. I'm also available by cell phone 469-978-7917.
Okay, cool.
So
cool. We'll do that at the end too. So one of the things then is you give back,
right?
And we were talking about nonprofit boards that you were on. Is there a nonprofit board, a smaller one that you're on that you want to talk about that you do, or?
I recently joined a board with Mr. Donald Parrish called A Steady Hand. Really enjoyed working with him because he seems to be able to identify mentors for a lot of our kids south of the Trinity River. One of the things that I recognize with Big Brothers Big Sisters is a great program, great organization, but they have 1,000 kids that are on the waiting list south of the Trinity that's looking for a mentor. And it's difficult to recruit mentors, to fill that void. But Donald Parrish, he's a very special person, and he's able to connect and identify folks that are willing to serve in that capacity. I mean, he can find mentors in his organization. I was like, wow, I want to be a part of that organization because I think that's what we really missing, that time and effort, and just sitting down and talking to our children and letting them know it's like the sky's the limit. And you don't have to be perfect. It's just like that's one thing I like about the franchising capacity, because you might have a record, but if you're willing to work hard as a store manager, you still can become a franchisor. The sky's the limit. It gives you hope, as you mentioned.
Exactly. And there was the MLK symposium that was this past Monday. It was at the Dallas Institute, and Shaka Senghor spoke.
Okay.
And we had a number of people there, like the district attorney was there, a number of other people who are in the space of really giving, people who had maybe a cling on their record, an opportunity to really fully participate in the opportunities from an entrepreneurial perspective or even from a job perspective, right?
Right. It's like one of my clients in Atlanta, it's called Mr. Everything. It's a restaurant that has rice with a protein base on top. Been doing very well. They actually brought in a franchisee that had a record 3 or 4 years ago. Helped him open the store. Now his store tracking at $1 million in sales.
Boom.
Mr. Everything was on the Today Show in late November. We have those hidden gems. We have those opportunities for people that's willing to work hard. It's like, I know Atlanta's known for trap music. It's like, let's trap some of this rice.
Right.
This season chick. Let's trap this franchise game, right? So we can make some paper.
And it was Smokey John's does the same thing here.
Okay.
Brent and Juan Reeves, they actually give people a chance, right, if they're willing to work hard.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of other employers out there who are willing to do that, but we got to all work together because people are doing everything separately.
Right. And back to your systems, I mean, most of your best ideas come from your employees.
Yeah.
So you put them in a position, and then you can, it just makes, it creates an ecosystem. That's what it's about, right? We're really talking about wealth, right?
Yeah.
Wealth generation is kind of, to the extent possible, moving more toward from the W-2 to capital gains, real estate ownership, and stock ownership.
Yeah.
But you can do all three. I mean, it's different revenue. I mean, you can work here and still own a business over here.
You have a
to be
diversification.
flexible.
Right.
Absolutely.
So one of the gentlemen I had on, he actually has a job. He's a logistic expert, but he has several hair salons that's in Walmart. And then he opened up a Lifeology counseling service, which are franchises, and he still has his W-2 job, and he's going to open up more. And so now, granted, he's continuing to do that. At some point, he's probably going to let go of his W-2 job, but sometimes benefits are good, right?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. But to your point, there's nothing wrong, and there's a lot of franchise models out there that doesn't require you to necessarily be there.
Right. Right.
You know, but you've got to have a system. You got to have a system.
Got to have a system and get and willing to work hard at it and execute upon the system. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, man. That's some good stuff, man. Is there anything else that you would say that, as a startup perspective, your experience in working with well-capitalized startups that would benefit people who probably are broke? You know, Damon Johns has a book called The Power of Broke. He talks about how that creates a lot of creativity. How do you get things done without money? Right. But sometimes even if you have money, you might find yourself wasting money.
Right.
But given your experience again, what would you say would be a good any other advice around systematizing your business, taking that time to do it? Get whatever thoughts you have out of your mind that this is not the most valuable use of your time. Even if you carve out an hour a day to just take some aspect of what you're doing and document it, and over a period of time, you'll have a beginning of a procedure manual. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's just carving out the time. I know life is busy, and things happen, but it's just start small. I mean, just like with X, it's like if it's 30 minutes of documenting or outlining your system, start outlining and start like, okay, here's my goal, here's my vision. How do I go about getting to that goal? Just start documenting. Just take out time. 30 minutes a day. Maybe on the weekends when you have time. Maybe not. Not. College football is over with now, right? So you have to, it's like when your favorite show ends or whatever. It's just taking that time to kind of document it and kind of just go through it and take advantage of the resources right here. I mean, we're in Dallas, Texas. I mean, Dallas. It's funny. I read a report by the University of Georgia, Terry's College of Business. They track multiculturalism, and I think Texas. African Americans have $117 billion worth of buying power. It's like, where are these resources? Like, how did the University of Texas get to this information? They getting it from somewhere. We got the championship. We got our National Urban League score. We have to be able to. Maybe it's having these organizations easily accessible so that we can take advantage of these particular resources. Because a lot of that time from network, you can get a lot of free info, a lot of cost-reduced information in order to get you to the next level. But once you get to the next level, you got to hire qualified professionals.
Exactly.
You absolutely have to hire qualified professionals to really
I was telling someone that there, whatever you feel like you need, there's a resource out there that's within your reach.
Right.
And you mentioned the National Urban League. I don't know if you know, but the National Urban League's national convention is going to be in Houston this year. And it's going to be August 5th through the 8th. Okay. So if, that's like only a 3.5 hour drive from Dallas. So if you guys mark that on your calendar, August 5th to the 8th, there's going to be a ton of resources available there that's going to definitely help educate you, give them hope, inspiration, and get connected to a lot of resources. I know that the Urban League doesn't have a location here anymore. I think the young professionals are still here, but the actual branch is no longer here in Dallas. But I do partner with the Houston area Urban League in Houston.
That's great. Workshops. That's great information. Or we have U.S. Congress folks in this particular area. I mean, they were talking about opportunity zones back in 2017. Yeah. They really know, it's lobbyists. Typically these things happen 2 or 3 years in advance. So I would advise, you have Congress persons here, they have staffs here, they have offices here. Let's hold them accountable to the extent that they're not, to provide the type of information that we need in order to grow our business.
So here's an interesting thing. So you look at the opportunity zones. Here's what I understand the opportunity zones. We have around 18 that's been identified in this North Texas area, right? Or in the Dallas area, Dallas Metroplex area. So opportunity zones, from a certain perspective, allows people who really have capital gains that they want to avoid paying taxes on or reduce taxes on to invest in a fund that's going to be invested in a economic development project in certain areas. Right. So you might think, okay, so how many people of color have enough tax capital gains that they want to avoid taxes on? Right. From a percentage basis, not that much, but the benefactors of people living in the community that can benefit from an economic development project that has now been incentivized
Mm-hmm.
to invest there. And then you look at in that area what type of entrepreneurial opportunities can exist
Right.
that you can be a benefactor of because there's now money to be invested in that area. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we got to jump on that, man. Is there anything on your radar that you hear that we need to get out there to the community to make sure they take advantage of that? I know that UNT Dallas had a symposium
Mm-hmm.
on that.
Yeah.
But, is there anything else that you know about that's going on?
No, I think the opportunity zones is a big issue, as well as just talking to, dealing with an accountant, right, that stays abreast of the various tax laws, right?
Oh my gosh,
Because
yeah.
they have all types of, like, they got what they call a qualified small business stock. Now, certain businesses don't qualify for it, but if you structure your company as a corporation and it's qualified, then in essence, if you set up this business qualified small business stock, and it grows to, let's say, $10 million, and you sell it, then you don't have to pay taxes on that $10 million.
Okay, so it's called a
Qualified small business stock.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you got that qualified small business stock, right?
Yeah, there's other mechanisms and 1099A type. I mean, it's various. I'm not a tax attorney, although our law firm does tax, but it's a lot of opportunities as treasure trove of information. If you can find a good tax accountant,
So
right?
tax accountant.
A
so you
tax
gotta-
accountant that keeps abreast of these issues, because they send alerts all the time, because you might have a business that qualifies for a lot of these tax incentives. And
Right.
and what better investment is, like, how many times, if I come to you and say, hey, I got a 20% rate of return investment, or you'll jump at that. Well,
Yeah.
then if you reduce your tax, then that's 20% rate of return.
And the tax code is written for business owners
Absolutely.
and real estate owners,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, especially in real estate development. To me, if your opportunities are, it's like if you're buying and selling houses, then develop your own fund.
Boom, boom. So really, if you think about multiple streams of income, I think I'm talking. I have so many things going on in the future. I think I have a person coming in to speak about creating multiple streams of income. Okay. February 15th
Okay.
is going to be a young lady who is part of a Red Development Corporation, and she's going to talk about establishing 8 streams of income.
Okay.
So one of those streams of income should be real estate.
Right.
It should be some kind of entrepreneurial pursuit. It can be a book or somehow capitalizing your knowledge.
Right.
And packaging that and selling it.
Right. And what I've seen is, and I've been fortunate to recognize, like, over the last 8 or 9 years, I'm telling you, social media and Instagram changed the game.
Oh my gosh.
With respect to franchise. Typically, I got a company-owned store. I want a franchise. It takes about 2 years to get it up and rolled. But with respect to Instagram, I got clients right now that have, like, vegan and pescatarian type concepts that we have. A lot of celebrities say, hey, I want to buy a franchise, and that sight unseen, right? Because of the power of Instagram, the photos, the marketing that it generates. So, with this social media, we're all connected more. So there's an opportunity to really scale at a more accelerated rate than previous. But you also got to make sure there's a lot of fraudsters out there to vet the opportunity correctly.
One of the last things in Farm and Market during the weekends,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of startup vegan restaurants out there with their booths.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have really established places yet. They're still trying to get funding. That might be a great, if they're watching this, to really look at how do you systematize your restaurant operations.
Yes.
And really get the funding so that you can open up a brick and mortar or
Right.
a restaurant and then go scalable and get a celebrity,
Yeah.
a celebrity investor. Right?
Right. It's just like helping franchise, like a hydration bar business. They used to call them like hangover helpers, where people.
Yeah, yeah.
But now it's like vitamin administration, medical spas. It's like the sky's the limit with respect to the business. But at the end of the day, when it comes to blocking and tackling, it comes down to the systems and developing the systems in order to grow.
And it may not be sexy.
You're right. It's
right?
not.
You guys want to just jump in, but you got to step back.
Right.
And a good book, the best book I would say to recommend to read is The E-Myth.
Okay.
So there's a book called The E-Myth Revisited. Have you heard of that book?
No, I haven't.
But it talks just about what you're saying. It says there's really 3 roles that entrepreneurs play. There's the technician. That is one that's actually doing the job. So most people who, like my cousin, he wants to be a photographer, so he
Right.
picks up the camera. He's the one doing it. So he's actually the technician. Then there's the manager that is usually managing the processes and the people and things of that nature. And then you've got the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is the one that really sits back, and it's the person who has the idea and builds the systems in place. To our point, systematizing your idea. And then you can then have the right managers in place to really manage the processes. And then you have the technicians that you can hire to do the work. And then your time is really spent on the business as opposed to being in the business.
Hey, you articulated it perfectly. I mean, you go to any Fortune 500 company, that's the reason why they have job duties and job responsibilities, because they systematize
exactly
the operations, and they know how each employee and technology is married within it.
And that's where the Empower Series is all about. I want to make sure that the Empower Series continues to operate when I don't wake up.
That's right.
So having that book where my board of directors can kind of look at that book and doing succession planning, like who's going to be the next one to step in and do these things that I'm doing. But regardless, it's in a written process, and it's going to continue, man, continue to grow. Just like this recording on YouTube. So give us your number one more time, the number that you...
Yeah, again, I can be reached, Carlos White, can be reached at 469-978-7917.
Okay, yeah. So and look him up. So Carlos, man, I want to thank you. Thank all of you guys for watching. Please stay connected with the Empower Series on all of our social media accounts. So not only on YouTube, if you're on YouTube right now, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and then share it with other people, because this is valuable information that truly can be a blessing to somebody else. Go to our website, www.empowerseries.com. Find out about our next upcoming events by hitting the RSVP button. Give us your feedback. Make a donation if you got the resources for that. Also, connect with us on all of our social media. So we have a LinkedIn company page where we put a lot of content out there. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have Twitter. So if you're not finding us on social media, you're not looking for us on social media. But again, with everything else, thank you. You spent the most valuable resource, which is your time, here with the Empower Series, and make sure that you act on these ideas that we've shared with you. That will give you the biggest dividend on any amount of investment that you have. So until we meet again, until we see each other again, I want you to stay empowered and be inspired to thrive. Thank you.
All right, great.
All right, bro.